1987. I remember that month clearly, even now at 65 years old. Some months fade with time, but that one never did. It stayed with me. It settled deep inside my memory and refused to leave. Back then I was young. I was full of quiet hope. I was living a simple life, the kind of life where you wake up early, do what you need to do, and believe tomorrow will look much like today. Safe, familiar, predictable. I lived in a working-class part of the city. Not rich, not poor.
Just people trying to get by.
The streets were narrow, lined with old buildings that carried the smell of dust, food, and fuel. Every morning, the city woke up slowly. Shop owners lifted metal doors. Buses coughed black smoke. Neighbors greeted each other with tired smiles. My days followed a routine. I woke early. I prepared for work. I walked the same paths. I returned home in the evenings, tired but satisfied. Life was not perfect, but it felt steady. That steadiness made me feel safe. I lived with my boyfriend then. We had plans. Simple plans, but plans that mattered. We talked about marriage, about building a life together. We talked about the future like it was something guaranteed. Like nothing could interrupt it. At night, we would sit together and talk about small things. Work, money, dreams. Sometimes we laughed. Sometimes we worried. But there was trust between us. Trust in each other. Trust in the world around us. I believed people were mostly good. I believed if you worked hard and treated others well, life would meet you halfway. I believed danger was something that happened far away, to other people in stories on the news. I was hardworking. I didn't complain much. I didn't question things deeply. If something felt uncomfortable, I pushed the feeling aside and told myself I was being dramatic. I had learned to be polite, patient, and understanding. Those qualities were praised back then, especially for women. My mind was calm in those days. I slept well. I walked without fear. I trusted without hesitation. I had no idea how fragile that peace was. I didn't know July 1987 would follow me for the rest of my life. The incident didn't happen suddenly. It did not come with danger written on it. It came quietly, wearing the face of kindness. It started with a friend. She was not a close friend, but she was someone I knew well enough to trust. We had spoken many times before. We had shared small conversations, small worries, small laughs. She knew where I lived. She knew about my plans to get married. She knew I lived with my boyfriend and that we were managing our life together. One afternoon, she came to see me looking tired and worried. Her clothes were dusty. Her face carried stress. She told me she had just arrived in the city and had nowhere to stay. She said the place she was supposed to go to was no longer available. She spoke fast, like someone afraid of running out of time. She said she only needed help for a short while. Just some days. Maybe a week. She promised she would find something quickly. She said she did not want to be a burden. I remember standing there listening to her, feeling my chest tighten. Not with fear, but with responsibility. I knew how hard the city could be. I knew how lonely it felt when you had nowhere to go. I remember times when I had needed help myself. She asked gently, not directly. She did not say, "Can I stay with you?" She said, "I don't know what I will do tonight." That sentence stayed in the air between us. I thought about my home. I thought about my boyfriend. I thought about our small space, our routine, our plans. And then I thought about her, standing there with no place to sleep. The decision felt obvious. I told myself it was the right thing to do. I said she could come and stay with us for the meantime. I told her we would figure something out together. I told her she was safe. She smiled with relief. She thanked me again and again. She said she would not cause trouble. She said she would be quiet. She said she would leave as soon as she could. While she was thanking me, something small moved inside my mind. A quiet feeling. A question without words. Why did she not tell me earlier? Why did she come without a plan? But I pushed those thoughts away. People fall into hard situations, I told myself. Not everyone has answers. Not everyone plans well. That night, I spoke to my boyfriend about it. He was surprised but not angry. He trusted my judgment. He trusted me.
She can stay for a bit, he said.
But just for a short time. I agreed quickly. Looking back now, I realize how easy it was to say yes. How natural it felt. Helping someone did not feel like a risk. It felt like kindness. It felt human. Still, small things did not sit well. She asked many questions about our routine. What time we left the house. What time we returned. Who visited us.
Who knew where we lived.
She spoke softly, but she listened closely. At night, she stayed awake long after we slept. Sometimes I would wake up and see light under the door. I told myself she was worried. I told myself she was adjusting. She also avoided talking about her own plans. When I asked where she was looking for work or who she knew in the city, her answers were unclear. She changed topics easily. She laughed things off. Once, my boyfriend asked her how long she planned to stay. She smiled and said, "Not long. Just until things settle." That answer did not settle anything. Another small moment came when she asked if anyone ever visited us unexpectedly. When I said no, she looked relieved in a way I could not explain. My inner voice started to whisper. Something doesn't feel right. But logic spoke louder. She is just stressed. She has nowhere else. You are overthinking. I had grown up learning not to doubt people without proof. I had learned to be patient, to be understanding, to be kind even when things felt uncomfortable. Doubt felt rude. Questioning felt ungrateful. So, I ignored the feeling. Days passed.
She stayed.
Each day, she said she was close to finding a place. Each day, nothing changed. She watched more than she spoke. She listened more than she shared. She blended into our space in a way that felt strange. Not loud, not disruptive, but present in every corner. I remember standing in the kitchen one morning, holding a cup of tea, feeling a tightness in my stomach for no clear reason. Everything looked normal.
The room was quiet.
The window was open. Yet something inside me felt unsettled. I asked myself why. There was no danger I could see. No argument. No threat. No raised voice. Just a feeling. It didn't feel right, but it also didn't feel dangerous. That sentence became my excuse. If it was not dangerous, then it could be handled. If it was not clear, then it was probably nothing. I chose to trust my logic instead of my instincts. I did not know then that this simple decision, to help someone, to open my door, to ignore a quiet warning, was already pulling me toward a moment I would never forget. I thought I was doing something good. I did not know I was stepping closer to July 1987 becoming more than just a date. That moment came quietly, not with shouting, not with chaos, just words spoken calmly, but heavy with meaning. It was late afternoon when my parents arrived. They had come from the village to the city to settle some matters. Nothing serious, just paperwork and errands that could not be done back home. As usual, they decided to stop by our place before heading elsewhere. It was normal for them to branch at our house whenever they were in the city. The day was warm. The sky was pale, covered with thin clouds. There was no rain, but the air felt heavy, like it was holding something back. Outside, cars passed slowly. People talked on the street. Everything sounded ordinary. Inside the house, my friend was sitting quietly. Too quietly. She greeted my parents politely, with respect. She smiled. She spoke softly. She looked calm. But my mother noticed things I did not want to see. Mothers always notice. She watched her closely. The way she moved. The way she listened. The way she stayed alert, even while sitting still. My father also observed, quietly, saying little at first. After some time, my mother pulled me aside. Her voice was low. Careful. "Who is this person staying with you?" she asked. I told her it was my friend. I explained she had come to the city and had nowhere to stay. I said it was temporary. My mother did not respond immediately. She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes searched my face, not with anger, but with concern. "She makes me uneasy," she said. That sentence landed inside my chest. I felt my body react before my mind did. A tight feeling formed just below my ribs. My breathing slowed. My hands became still. "What do you mean?"
I asked. My father joined us then.
He cleared his throat.
She listens too much, he said calmly.
And she says too little. They were not accusing her. They were not dramatic.
They were simply warning me.
My mother spoke again.
I don't feel peace about this, she said.
Be careful. The room went quiet. In that silence, I felt torn. On one side, my parents, people who had protected me my whole life. People who had seen many things, lived many years, learned lessons through pain and experience. On the other side, my friend, a woman who had asked for help. Someone I had already welcomed. Someone I had already promised safety. I felt my chest tighten even more. I did not want to believe there was a problem. I did not want to hear it. Accepting their warning would mean admitting I might be wrong, that my kindness might be misplaced. I smiled and tried to ease the moment. She's my friend, I said. She won't be here for long. My mother looked disappointed, not angry. That hurt more. She did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She only said one last thing. Sometimes danger does not announce itself, she said. That sentence stayed with me. But I still ignored it. I told myself my parents were being overly cautious. I told myself the city had changed them, that they were not used to modern life, that they worried too much. I convinced myself they did not understand the situation fully. Inside me, something hesitated. My heart knew something was wrong. My body felt tense. My shoulders were stiff. My throat felt dry. I stood there in silence longer than usual, unsure what to say next. That hesitation was important. That was the moment where I could have listened, the moment where I could have asked deeper questions, the moment where I could have asked my friend to leave. But I did not. I chose peace over caution. I chose politeness over instinct. I chose not to cause discomfort. Later that evening, after my parents left, my friend asked about them.
She wanted to know what they said.
I told her they were just visiting. I did not mention the warning. She nodded slowly, like she already knew. That night, sleep did not come easily. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing small sounds in the house. Every movement felt louder than usual. My mind replayed my mother's voice. Be careful. I pushed the thought away and turned to my side. Nothing had happened, I told myself. Nothing bad had occurred. Everything was still fine. But deep down, I felt it. That was the moment I should have changed my mind.
And I didn't.
I did not push her away. That was my first mistake. I did not confront her. I did not set clear limits. I did not ask hard questions. Instead, I chose softness. I told myself it was better to be calm than hostile. I believed that showing discomfort would make her feel uneasy. I feared that if I acted distant, she would notice. And if she noticed, she might react badly. I did not want tension in my home. So I smiled. I stayed polite. I acted normal. I thought kindness would keep things under control. Inside my mind, I created reasons to justify my choice. I told myself she had already suffered enough. She had come from far away. She looked tired. She spoke about struggles in the city, about how hard life had been. I listened and felt sympathy grow in me. I also feared something else. I feared looking rude. In our culture, turning someone away, especially someone who asks for help, can follow you for years. People talk. They judge. They remember. I did not want to be seen as someone who lacked compassion. I feared looking weak too. If I suddenly changed my mind, what would that say about me? Would it mean I was easily influenced? That I could not stand by my decisions? I wanted to appear strong and consistent. I feared looking foolish most of all. I had already welcomed her. I had already explained her presence to my boyfriend. I had already defended her to my parents. Admitting doubt now felt like admitting failure. So I stayed silent. Each day, I told myself, just a little longer. At first, she behaved carefully. She asked before using things. She spoke gently. She thanked me often. She woke up early. She cleaned small areas without being asked. She offered help in the kitchen. These actions made me relax. I thought, maybe my parents were wrong. I thought, maybe I overreacted inside. That belief made me lower my guard. Slowly, things changed. Not suddenly. Not obviously. It happened in small steps. She stopped asking before using items. She no longer waited for permission. She began moving freely through the house, opening cupboards, shifting things around. She rearranged plates one afternoon. I noticed the change, but said nothing. It was harmless, I told myself. Then she moved a chair. Then a small table. Then one day, I came home and found my belongings placed differently. She smiled and said, "I was just trying to make the place more comfortable." I laughed lightly, but inside, something tightened. My boyfriend noticed too. He asked quietly, "Is she planning to stay longer?" I did not have an answer. That scared me. She started speaking as if the house belonged to all of us. She said "we" instead of "you." She spoke about plans, about how things should be done. She began leaving her things everywhere. Clothes on chairs, bags near the door, shoes beside mine. Her presence filled the space. At night, I felt it more strongly. I would lie in bed and listen to her movements. The sound of her footsteps no longer felt like those of a guest. They sounded confident, familiar. She felt at home, too at home. One evening, I realized something that made my heart sink. I was adjusting my behavior to suit her. I lowered my voice. I chose my words carefully. I avoided topics that might upset her. That was when I understood I had crossed a line. Without realizing it, I had given her control. She no longer acted like someone borrowing space. She acted like someone claiming it. Yet I still did nothing.
Why?
Because stepping back now felt dangerous. I feared confrontation. I feared her reaction if I asked her to
Leave.
I feared anger. I feared tears. I feared blame. So I continued pretending everything was fine. I told myself she would leave soon. I told myself this phase would pass. I told myself patience was strength. But patience can become surrender. I noticed changes in myself. I became tense in my own home. I rushed conversations. I avoided being alone with her. Still, I smiled. Still, I accepted. The house no longer felt fully mine, yet I kept the door open. That was how I chose to accept her. Not in one bold decision, but in many small ones. And with every step, I went deeper. At first, I thought everything was normal. I told myself I was just being protective. I convinced myself I was imagining things. But slowly, day by day, small changes began to appear, so subtle that I almost missed them. I noticed my boyfriend acting differently. It started with small gestures, small favors. When I mentioned something about her presence, he would quietly redirect the conversation or dismiss my concerns. Not harshly, not angrily, just subtly, like it didn't matter what I was saying. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he wanted peace in the house. But soon, his behavior became harder to ignore. I came home one afternoon, tired from work, expecting the house to feel the same as always. I expected calm. I expected normal. But I noticed her sitting on the couch, laughing at something my boyfriend said. And he was smiling at her, not at me. The feeling in my chest shifted. A slow, sinking dread spread through me. Something wasn't right. My home, which had once felt safe and predictable, suddenly felt foreign. My heart beat faster, tight in my chest. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm being paranoid. I told myself these things repeatedly, but the unease wouldn't leave. Day by day, I saw more signs. My boyfriend started supporting her in ways that felt unfair. When I spoke up about small things she did, taking liberties in the house, leaving her things out, he would defend her. "She's just trying to help," he said. Or, "Don't make it a big deal." At first, I believed him. But inside, a warning bell rang. Something was being hidden. Something was shifting, and I was too blind to see it clearly. One evening, I came home earlier than usual. I had a strange feeling, an instinct I couldn't ignore. As I opened the door, I heard laughter, soft, familiar laughter, not mine, not his usual voice. I froze. My stomach tightened. I slowly walked in, trying not to seem suspicious. And there they were. She was sitting close to him on the sofa, their heads bent together as if sharing a secret. The kind of closeness that shouldn't exist in my home. A cold wave of fear hit me. I tried to tell myself it was innocent. Maybe they were talking about something trivial. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But my body didn't lie. My hands shook, my chest felt tight, and a sense of panic began to spread. From that moment, logic started losing to fear. Every gesture, every laugh, every glance I caught between them became a signal of betrayal. I noticed the way he would smile when she entered the room. I noticed the way he listened to her carefully, always attentive to her words. I noticed how my own voice began to tremble whenever I raised a concern. I realized then, with growing horror, that this wasn't what I thought it was. My home was no longer my sanctuary. The trust one had placed in my boyfriend, the same trust that had allowed me to be open and kind to her, was now uncertain. Fear replaced my logic. My mind raced with questions I did not want to ask aloud. Are they working together? Is my presence in the house unwanted? Have I been fooled? Even the environment around me seemed to change. Rooms that once felt warm and safe felt oppressive. The air felt heavier. The walls seemed closer. Sounds became sharper. The clatter of dishes, the soft creak of the floor, the click of the door. I could feel their presence even before I saw them. It was a constant tension, like walking on thin ice. I started observing them constantly. My eyes followed their movements. I noticed small gestures, a wink, a smirk, a glance exchanged when I was not looking directly. Each subtle interaction became amplified in my mind, each laugh and word dissected for hidden meaning. Every time they looked at each other, my stomach twisted. I tried confronting him gently at first. I asked, "Do you think she's staying too long? Or, are you sure this is okay?" He would respond with a calm, convincing tone, reassuring me that everything was fine. But the reassurance felt hollow. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being manipulated, that I was being made to feel small or unreasonable. Fear began to grow in my chest, cold and persistent. I avoided being alone with him. I stopped mentioning her in conversation. I rehearsed my words before speaking, measuring my tone. I tried to make myself invisible, hoping that by staying quiet, I could avoid conflict. Yet, despite my efforts, I could not ignore the truth. The closeness between them was no accident. The support he gave her, the subtle gestures, the way he smiled, these were signs of something deeper, something hidden from me. My mind raced, imagining scenarios, possibilities, consequences. Every small act became evidence of a larger betrayal. I began sleeping lightly, waking at odd hours. I replayed conversations in my mind, trying to find clues. I checked my surroundings, listening for footsteps, noticing shadows in corners. My home, once a place of comfort, now felt like a battlefield. My every move was cautious, calculated. Fear was constant. It followed me from room to room, from the kitchen to the bedroom. The fear spread to my social life, too. I stopped inviting friends over. I avoided conversations about the house. I didn't want anyone to notice the tension, the unease. I felt trapped between protecting myself and preserving appearances. I began questioning my own judgment. Had I been too trusting? Had I let my kindness be mistaken for weakness? Had I invited danger into my home without realizing it? Each thought added weight to the fear building inside me. The house itself seemed to betray me. Every noise, every creak, every whisper of wind against the window made me flinch. I noticed how they moved around the space, how they occupied it, how they claimed it, and I realized subtly, quietly, that I had given them that claim without realizing it. My world had shifted. What I thought was safe and familiar had turned alien. My partner, the one I trusted, seemed to be complicit, whether intentionally or not. And the woman I had welcomed, the one I thought I was helping, had crossed an invisible line. The fear became constant. Logic was a distant memory. I no longer felt calm. I no longer felt secure. Every day, every interaction, every glance carried tension. The home that once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a trap. And deep down, I knew one thing clearly. This was not what I thought it was. I had been blind. I had been trusting. I had let kindness outweigh caution. And now, the consequences of that choice were unfolding in front of me, piece by piece. It was no longer about politeness or patience or appearances. It was about survival. And for the first time, I realized that fear had replaced every other feeling. Every step I took inside my own home now carried weight. Every word I spoke had risk. Every decision mattered. The shift was complete. The reality I had ignored was now impossible to escape. This wasn't a small mistake anymore. This was a turning point. I could feel it deep in my bones. The calm, trusting world I had known was gone. And there was no going back. The change did not come suddenly. It grew slowly, like a shadow that stretches longer without warning. By the time I fully understood what was happening, it was already too late to pretend nothing was wrong. The relationship between them stopped being hidden. It was no longer careful. It was no longer subtle. Whatever line existed before had been crossed, and neither of them tried hard to step back again. At first, it showed in small ways. My boyfriend no longer waited for me before making decisions in the house. He spoke to her first. He asked her opinion. If I questioned anything, his tone changed. His voice became sharp, defensive, almost irritated, as if I was the problem for noticing. I felt it in the way he looked at me. The warmth was gone. The softness disappeared. His eyes no longer searched for mine when I entered a room. Instead, they avoided me or passed over me like I was not there. She, on the other hand, moved freely. Too freely. She walked around the house like it belonged to her. She rearranged things without asking. She spoke with confidence, even authority. Sometimes she corrected me, inside my own home. And my boyfriend said nothing. Worse, sometimes he agreed with her. Each time it happened, my chest tightened. I tried to talk to him calmly. I chose my words carefully. I did not accuse. I did not raise my voice. I only asked simple questions. Why does she speak to me like that? Why do you take her side every time? Don't you see how this looks? But every question ended the same way. He reacted. Not with explanation. Not with reassurance. With anger. He said I was imagining things. He said I was insecure. He said I was causing tension where none existed. His words cut deeper than shouting would have. They made me doubt myself. I began to feel small. I began to feel alone. The house no longer felt like a place of rest. It felt like a stage where I was constantly being watched, judged, measured. Every movement felt wrong. Every word felt dangerous. Then came the day that changed everything. I remember it clearly. I returned from work earlier than usual. My body was tired. My feet ached. All I wanted was to sit down, breathe, and feel safe for a moment. The street was quiet. The sky was dull. Even the air felt heavy, like it was holding something back. As I reached the door, I noticed it was not locked. That alone made my heart beat faster. I pushed the door open slowly. The house was silent at first.
Too silent.
Then I heard voices.
Low.
Close. Familiar. My stomach turned. I stepped inside carefully, my shoes barely touching the floor. Each step felt loud in my ears. My heart began to pound harder with every breath. As I moved closer, I saw them. They were together. Too close. Not standing apart. Not facing different directions. They were sitting side by side. His body leaned toward hers. Her hand rested near his arm. Their faces were close enough that I could see their expressions clearly. They were not talking loudly. They were not laughing. It was something worse. They were comfortable, relaxed, like people who did not expect interruption. For a moment, time stopped. My hands began to shake. A wave of nausea rose in my throat. Cold sweat formed on my back, running slowly down my skin. My legs felt weak, like they might give way. I stood there, frozen. Neither of them noticed me at first. Then she looked up. Her eyes met mine. There was no shock, no fear, no guilt. only surprise, and then calm. She smiled. That smile will stay with me forever. My boyfriend turned slowly. When he saw me, he did not jump up. He did not step away. He did not explain. He simply said my name.
Come. Flat.
As if I had walked in on nothing important. Why are you home early? He asked. That was all. No apology. No explanation. No shame. They acted like it was normal. Like I was the strange one for standing there, shaking, unable to speak. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions at once. But no sound came out. My chest felt tight. My mouth went dry. My heart beat so fast I thought I might faint. I felt sick. The room seemed to spin slightly. The walls looked closer. The air felt thin. I struggled to breathe properly. I tried to speak, but my voice came out weak. What is this? I asked. He sighed. Actually sighed. As if I had interrupted something unimportant. She was just talking, he said.
Just talking.
I looked at her. She avoided my eyes this time. She stood up slowly, adjusting her clothes, moving with ease. No fear. No urgency. She walked past me without a word. That moment broke something inside me. After she left the room, he turned to me again. You're making this bigger than it is, he said. The words hit me like a slap. My hands trembled harder. My stomach churned. A cold feeling spread through my body, reaching my fingers, my toes, my spine. I felt dizzy. My thoughts scattered. And then, suddenly, my family filled my mind. My parents. My siblings. Their faces appeared clearly, one after another. I thought of how far I was from them. I thought of how alone I was in that house. I thought of how vulnerable I had become without realizing it. Fear replaced everything else. Not anger. Not sadness.
Fear.
I realized in that moment that I was no longer safe, not emotionally, not mentally, not even physically. The man I trusted no longer stood with me. The woman I helped no longer respected boundaries. And I stood between them, unsupported, unheard. After that day, nothing was hidden anymore. They spoke freely in front of me. They exchanged looks without care. They made plans together. When I questioned anything, he reacted with irritation or silence. Sometimes he raised his voice. Sometimes he ignored me completely. I began to feel like a stranger in my own life. My body responded before my mind could catch up. I stopped eating properly. I slept badly. I woke up with my heart racing. I felt sick often. Cold sweat soaked my clothes at night. My hands shook even when I tried to hold a cup. I became jumpy at sounds. Doors closing made me flinch. Footsteps made my stomach tighten. I felt watched.
Judged. Trapped.
Every day felt heavier than the last. I thought of leaving, but fear held me back. Fear of confrontation. Fear of being alone. Fear of what they might say. Fear of what might happen if I stayed. Fear of what might happen if I left. I felt stuck between two terrible choices. The incident replayed in my mind again and again. The way they looked together. The calm in his voice. The smile on her face. The way my body reacted before I could stop it. I realized then that kindness had led me here. Trust had opened the door. Silence had kept me trapped. That day marked the end of denial. There was no misunderstanding. No innocent explanation. No comfort left to cling to. Something had shifted permanently. The relationship between them was no longer strange. It was clear. And my place in that house was no longer secure. Fear settled deep inside me, quiet but constant. And I knew, without doubt, that this was only the beginning of something far worse. After the incident, I felt a storm inside me. My home, the place where I should feel safe, had become a battlefield. Every corner reminded me of their betrayal. Every step I took echoed the fear and humiliation I had endured. I knew I could not let it continue. Something had to change. I had to take control. The first thing I did was confront her. I waited until my boyfriend was at work and the house was quiet. I found her in the living room, casually sitting, like nothing had happened. My chest tightened, my hands trembled slightly, but I forced myself to speak. "I'm giving you one chance," I said firmly, trying to keep my voice steady. "You need to leave this house. Find somewhere else to stay. I will not tolerate this anymore." Her face did not show surprise, anger, or guilt. She simply looked at me calmly, almost calculating. I could feel her evaluating me, testing my resolve. There was a pause that seemed to stretch forever. My heart pounded. I imagined what she could say, how she might try to turn the situation around, to make me back down. But I held my ground. She finally spoke, her voice smooth, almost too calm. "I told him everything," she said, referring to my boyfriend. "We had a serious argument, but I agreed. I will move out. I will find another place, don't worry." Her words were not exactly a relief. They were measured, almost like she had already prepared them. I could sense that her plan was still in motion, but at least, for now, she had submitted to my demand. I breathed a small sigh of relief, though a knot remained in my stomach. The next few days were tense. Every movement of hers reminded me of the earlier betrayal. I watched her pack her things, careful not to step too close, careful not to provoke her. She moved quietly, avoiding confrontation, but I could feel the underlying tension, like a wire stretched tight, ready to snap. My boyfriend, strangely, did not intervene. He watched her pack and leave without a word. I knew he had shared a part of the responsibility. He had arranged the next place for her, rented by him and her, but at least she was moving. I could finally breathe in my own home. The quiet was almost surreal after days of silent wars and unspoken battles. When she finally left, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, certainly. Finally, my home felt mine again. Safety returned, though still fragile. I could close the door without feeling dread. I could sit in my living room without imagining their whispered conversations behind my back. I could sleep at night without the tension pressing on my chest. Yet even as I felt relief, a part of me remained alert. I knew she had not fully disappeared from my life. Her influence had already caused damage. Trust, once broken, does not return easily. Every creak of the floor, every unexpected sound, made my heart race. The house was mine again, yes, but my mind was still alert, watching, calculating, anticipating what could go wrong. Over time, the tension eased slightly. I began to regain control of my routines. I cooked in my kitchen again without hesitation. I walked around the house without flinching. I even spoke to my boyfriend more confidently, setting boundaries, demanding clarity. The imbalance had shifted. The power was mine again. Yet the experience left a scar. Even though the house was physically empty of the intruder, the memory of their betrayal lingered like smoke in a closed room. Every thought of them brought a shiver. Every recollection of their calm, knowing looks reminded me of how close I had been to losing everything, not just my home, but my sense of safety, my dignity, my peace. I realized then that fear can only be defeated if it is faced directly. By confronting her, I had asserted my authority. I had set a limit she could not cross. And even though the path forward was not free from caution, it was mine to walk. I took measures to protect myself further. Locks were checked, routines were adjusted, and I learned to trust my instincts above all. My home became a fortress in my mind, and in reality, a place where I could finally begin to feel control over my life again. Most importantly, I understood a hard lesson. Threats, no matter how subtle or overt, must be faced with resolve. Waiting, hoping, or ignoring them only gives them power. Confrontation, even when terrifying, is sometimes the only way to reclaim safety. By the end of that week, the house felt calm again. The presence that had caused fear and tension was gone. The control I thought I had lost was restored. And though the memory of what happened would never fully leave me, I knew I had survived it and emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined to protect my home and my peace at all costs. It was a turning point, a moment where fear was met with courage, where betrayal was countered with action, and where my home became truly mine again. Even now, years later, I remember that week as the time I realized the power of facing danger head-on, refusing to be a victim and reclaiming my life despite the threat that once seemed insurmountable. After she left, something inside him shifted. My boyfriend, the man I had trusted and loved, began to act differently. At first, it was small things, coming home later than usual, avoiding eye contact, making excuses that didn't feel genuine. I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe he was adjusting to her absence. But the signs quickly became impossible to miss. One night, I arrived home earlier than usual, hoping to surprise him with dinner or at least catch him before he went out. I noticed the apartment was unusually quiet. His bags, his entire life packed up, were gone, neatly placed near the door, almost like a message. The silence hit me like a cold wave. My heart started pounding, my hands began to tremble, and a tight knot formed in my stomach. I knew immediately something was very wrong. I walked around the apartment slowly, calling his name softly at first, then louder. No response. My mind raced. Where could he be? Did he go out for the night? Or is it something else? The questions echoed through the empty rooms. Each unanswered call made my chest feel heavier. I felt frozen in place, my body shaking uncontrollably. The fear of what I might discover made my mind whirl, unable to focus. The next few days were worse. He stopped coming home entirely. Calls went unanswered. Messages ignored. It became clear that he was no longer living his life alongside mine. The person I knew, the man I trusted, had vanished from our shared home. Every time I thought of him, my hands shook, my heart raced, and a cold sweat broke over my skin. I was left alone with a house that used to feel safe, now heavy with betrayal. I started asking around, quietly, afraid of drawing attention. Neighbors, friends, anyone who might know where he was. Finally, a friend hesitantly told me he had been staying at their apartment. My stomach dropped. The betrayal cut deep, not just because he was gone, but because he had moved in with someone else. Someone new. Someone I had come to despise for the disruption she had caused. Determined to face the truth, I went to look for him at his workplace. Each step felt heavier than the last. My hands shook so badly, I had trouble gripping my bag. My thoughts spun endlessly. What will I say? Will he admit the truth? Or will he lie to me again? The walk to his office felt like it lasted hours. Every street I passed, I imagined him smiling, laughing, living as if our past never existed. My chest tightened, my breathing grew shallow. I felt a mixture of rage, fear, and despair that I had never known before. When I finally found him, the sight was like a punch to the gut. He was calm, almost too calm, as if nothing had happened. I struggled to find my voice, shaking so hard I could barely speak. Why? Why are you doing this? I finally managed to ask, my words trembling. The familiar smell of my home wrapped around me.
Clean.
Safe. Ordinary. The living room lights were off, but the hallway light from the kitchen cast a soft glow across the floor. I locked the door behind me. The sound echoed too loudly. I stood still listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. No movement. I swallowed and forced myself forward. I checked the kitchen first. Cabinets closed. Windows locked. Nothing missing. The refrigerator hummed quietly, the most normal sound in the world. I moved slowly, room by room.
Bedroom.
Empty. Closet. Empty. Bathroom. Empty. I checked under the bed, even though I knew how ridiculous it looked. Nothing. My heart was still racing, but confusion began to mix with the fear. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe trauma really had followed me into madness. I sat on the edge of the couch and exhaled for the first time since leaving that empty street. My hands were shaking, but I was alive. I was safe. I picked up my phone and called my friend. "I'm inside," I said. "I checked everywhere. I think I'm okay." She sounded relieved but still cautious. "Please keep the door locked," she said. "We're still coming." "I know," I replied, "but I think I scared myself." We stayed on the phone for a few minutes, talking about nothing important. The sound of her voice helped slow my breathing. After we hung up, exhaustion hit me all at once. My body ached. My head throbbed. I felt dirty, like fear itself had soaked into my skin. I decided to take a shower. The bathroom felt safe.
Bright.
Familiar. I locked the door, turned on the water, and stepped under the spray. The warmth relaxed my tense muscles, and for a few minutes, the world faded away. I told myself it was over. I told myself I was finally free. When I turned off the water, the silence felt heavier than before. I wrapped a towel around myself and stepped out. That was when I saw him. A figure sat on my couch in the living room,
Still.
waiting. My scream died in my throat. He held a knife loosely in his hand, the metal catching the faint light from the hallway. His posture was relaxed, almost casual, as if he were a guest who had been waiting patiently. My legs froze. My heart slammed so hard I thought I might pass out. He slowly lifted his head and looked at me. "You remember me," he said. He said my name. Hearing it from his mouth shattered something inside me. "I knew you would come back," he continued calmly. "You always do what you think is right." My voice came out broken. "How did you get in?" He smiled, a smile I remembered too well. "You never changed the locks," he said. "You always trusted systems." My mind screamed run, but my body wouldn't listen. "You ruined me," he said, standing slowly. "You ruined everything I worked for." The knife glinted as he moved. "You lied," I said, my voice shaking. "You used me." "I gave you purpose," he snapped. "I gave you a future." "You were killing people," I said. His expression hardened. "And you decided to play hero." He stepped closer. "I lost my business, my power, my life," he said. "Because of you." That was when it hit me fully. It wasn't someone like him. It was him. My former boss. The man I had sent to prison. But his face. It was similar, yet wrong. The shape was off. The skin too tight in places. "What did you do to yourself?" I whispered. He laughed softly.
Surgery, he said.
"A gift you forced me to give myself." My stomach turned. "I removed parts of my face," he continued, his voice calm and proud. "Changed enough so I could walk past cameras. So I could walk past you." I backed away slowly. "You think prison scares me now?" he asked. "I've already lost everything. Killing you won't make it worse." The knife rose slightly. "I don't mind going back," he said. "Not after this." Fear burned through me, but something else rose with it. Anger. Defiance. "I won't let you do this," I said. He tilted his head. "You already did." He lunged. I screamed and stumbled backward, slipping on the tile. Pain exploded through my back as I hit the floor. The knife slashed downward, missing my chest by inches. I kicked with everything I had. He grunted as my heel connected with his leg, just enough to throw him off balance. I scrambled away, my towel slipping as I crawled, my body screaming in pain. He grabbed my ankle. I kicked again, screaming, sobbing, fighting with pure instinct. The knife came down again. This time it cut. A sharp, burning pain tore through my side. I screamed louder than I ever had in my life. Blood spread across the floor. "You should have stayed silent," he hissed. I grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and smashed it into his head. It shattered, glass exploding everywhere. He stumbled, stunned for just a second. That second saved my life. I dragged myself toward the door, leaving a trail of blood behind me. My vision blurred. My hand slipped. Before I could reach it, he was on me again. The knife rose. Then,
Shouts.
a loud crash. The door burst open. I heard my name being screamed.
Police.
My friend. Chaos. He turned, distracted, rage flooding his face. The knife came down one last time. A gunshot exploded through the room. Then another. His body jerked violently. He collapsed on top of me, heavy and lifeless. I screamed until my voice disappeared. Hands pulled him off me. Someone pressed pressure against my wound. Someone else kept saying, "You're safe. You're safe." The room spun. The last thing I saw was his face, empty, still, finally powerless. Then everything went dark. I woke up to white light and silence. For a moment, I thought I was dead. The ceiling above me was too bright, too clean. The air smelled sharp, like chemicals and soap. My body felt heavy, wrapped in pain and exhaustion. When I tried to move, a deep ache spread through my side and chest, forcing a weak sound from my throat. A machine beeped beside me. That was when I understood I was alive. I was in the hospital. Memories returned slowly, like broken pieces forcing their way back into my mind. The couch. The knife. His voice. The gunshots. Darkness. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. A nurse noticed and rushed to my side, speaking softly, telling me not to move, telling me I was safe.
Safe.
The word felt strange, unreal. I nodded, even though I didn't fully believe it yet. I stayed in that hospital for a month. 30 long days. Some days I slept almost all the time. Other days I woke up screaming, my body reacting to memories before my mind could catch up. I dreamed of him sitting in the dark. I dreamed of knives. I dreamed of doors that wouldn't open. My body healed faster than my mind. My friend visited every day. She sat beside my bed, sometimes talking, sometimes just holding my hand in silence. She looked tired, more tired than I had ever seen her, but she never complained. One afternoon, when the pain medication had faded enough for my thoughts to feel clear, I asked her the question that had been haunting me. "How did you know?" I whispered. "How did you know I was in danger?" She looked at me for a long moment before answering. "After you called and said you were safe," she said slowly, "I felt uneasy. I don't know why. Something didn't sit right with me." She swallowed. "About an hour later, I called you back.
Just to check on you.
You didn't answer." My heart tightened. "I called again," she continued.
And again.
No response. Then your phone went off completely. It was switched off. Tears rolled down her face. "That's when I knew," she said. "You would never do that. Never." I ran straight to the police. The reassurance helped, but it could not erase the memory or the trauma. I realized that safety was not just about being away from danger. It was also about being able to breathe, to feel grounded, and to know that someone cared. My family's presence did exactly that. We spent the night talking in fragments. I could not recount everything in perfect order. My mind skipped moments, jumped over painful details, and paused at memories that were too sharp to speak aloud. My parents did not push. They offered tea, a warm blanket, and words of comfort. Their patience was a balm to the rawness I carried. During the night, I thought about the city, my apartment, and the life I had left behind. The silence of the village was heavier than words, yet it was comforting in a strange way. I could hear my own heartbeat, the rhythm steady and grounding. I realized that while I was physically safe, the emotional trauma would linger. My hands no longer shook as violently, but the memory of betrayal remained. The next day, I knew I would have to return to the city for work. I packed my bag slowly, savoring the last few moments of the village's calm. My parents insisted on accompanying me part of the way, making sure I felt secure before I boarded the train. I hugged them tightly, feeling their warmth seep into me, giving me strength I did not know I still had. On the journey back, I stared at the window again. The city skyline grew larger as we approached, but my mind was not focused on the buildings or streets. It was focused on control, regaining it, protecting myself, and finding a way to navigate life without falling into similar traps again. I knew the trauma was part of me now, a permanent shadow. But the contrast of safety I experienced in the village reminded me that refuge exists, even if temporarily, and that family and trust can be anchors when the world feels unstable. Arriving in the city, I felt the weight return slightly, the memories of betrayal, the shaking, the heartbreak, but the grounding from the village remained with me. My apartment felt different now, familiar, yet shadowed by past events. I stepped inside cautiously, checking every corner, locking every door, ensuring that I had control over my immediate surroundings. Even as I resumed my routine, I could feel the difference. I walked more carefully, observed more, and trusted less. My body reacted to old triggers. A sudden noise, a knock on the door, or a shadow moving too quickly could make my hands tremble again. I reminded myself of the safety I had experienced, using it as a shield against fear. That night, I lay in bed, reflecting on the past days. The village had given me calm, perspective, and comfort. My family had reminded me that safety and care are essential, and that even in the darkest moments, refuge is possible. Yet the silence of my apartment was heavy. It reminded me that while I could return physically, emotionally, I was changed. Trust would take longer to rebuild. Fear would need time to fade. The journey home had been more than a physical trip. It was a journey of processing, understanding, and preparing for what lay ahead. I realized that life moves forward, even after trauma. We carry scars, but we also carry lessons and resilience. And though I returned to the city, the memory of that safe village, the comforting presence of my family, and the quiet strength I felt there would remain with me forever. Returning to the city felt heavier than ever. I had thought that the trip to the village would help me reset, that being with my family would wash away the sharp edges of what had happened in July 1987. But reality waited for me, cold and unrelenting. The streets, the apartment, even the familiar sights of my neighborhood now carried echoes of betrayal. Every corner, every sound, seemed to remind me of that time, of him, and of the choices I had made. Going back to work was harder than I expected. I had once found comfort in routine, in the simple rhythm of tasks and responsibilities. Now, every ringing phone, every unexpected visitor, and every casual conversation felt like a potential trap. I kept my head down, focused on work, trying to suppress the memories, but they always returned with more force. Each time I closed my eyes at night, July 1987 replayed itself, over and over. The apartment felt emptier than ever. Even though I had decorated it and tried to make it welcoming again, I could not shake the sense of loss. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was the innocence I had lost. The trust one once gave freely now felt like a dangerous weakness. I replayed every moment of the incident in my mind. Her smile, the little gestures that should have been harmless, the sudden shift that revealed the truth. The weight of knowing what I had ignored, what I had allowed, and what I had lost pressed down on me like a heavy stone. Sleepless nights became routine. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what could have been different. If only I had noticed the small signs earlier. If only I had questioned him more. If only I had trusted my instincts. The if only thoughts haunted me, filling every quiet moment with regret and a sense of helplessness. My body carried the tension. Shoulders tight, stomach clenched, and hands trembling occasionally as if my muscles remembered the fear even when my mind tried to push it away. Years passed, and I heard fragments of their life from a friend, a wedding, a child, a family that had once been intertwined with mine. Hearing their happiness in such casual, innocent tones brought a bitter sting to my chest. It reminded me of what I had lost, of the trust that had been broken, and of the future I had once imagined but would never have. The life I had planned, the shared dreams and promises, all dissolved into fragments. I carried them silently, unspoken, never shared with anyone because the pain felt too personal, too raw. I tried to keep busy, immersing myself in work, friends, and errands. Yet every small sound, every familiar gesture, triggered memories. A laugh that sounded similar to hers, a gesture from someone at work, a glance from a stranger. Each moment carried shadows from the past. My mind would involuntarily rewind, placing me back in July 1987, feeling the tight chest, the nausea, the shaking, and the sense of betrayal all over again. Guilt and self-blame were constant companions. I scolded myself silently. You should have seen it. You should have acted. You allowed it to happen. But there were no answers, only questions and lingering what-ifs. My nights were long, filled with thoughts that would not let me sleep. Even when exhaustion overtook me, sleep was not peace. Dreams were sharp, fragmented, full of faces, voices, and moments I wished I could forget. Waking up, I often felt more tired than before I went to bed, weighed down by the unseen burden of memory. In public, I began to notice changes in myself. I was quieter, more careful. Conversations were measured, eyes scanning for hidden intentions. Trust had become a luxury I could no longer afford. Strangers' smiles no longer reassured me, they made me cautious. Old friends sometimes remarked on my silence, on the cautious way I moved through life, and I could only smile weakly, saying I was tired or busy. They could not understand the depth of the shadow I carried from that single month of betrayal and upheaval. Every year, July arrived with a heaviness I could not escape. The month was a ghost of the past, a reminder that life could change in an instant, that trust could be broken, and that innocence could be stolen. I would find myself staring at the calendar, heart tightening, and thoughts spinning backward to that fateful time. The memories were vivid, the small lies, the sudden shifts, the moments I ignored, and the shaking fear that never fully left me. Despite the trauma, I carried on. Life required it. Work demanded it. Bills had to be paid, meals had to be cooked, and life had to move forward. But moving forward did not mean forgetting. It meant learning to live with the memory, with the weight, with the lingering sense of vulnerability. Each day was a balance between survival and remembering. I learned to accept that the peace I once took for granted might never return fully. I learned to be careful with trust, to measure kindness with awareness. I carried the lesson that the world is not always as it seems, and that people may not always be who they appear to be. Yet, amidst the sorrow and sleepless nights, I also discovered resilience I did not know I had. The ability to wake up each morning, face the world again, and continue moving forward became my small victory, a testament to endurance and survival. Through all the sleepless nights, the guilt, and the fear, one truth became clear: I survived. I survived betrayal, heartbreak, and the collapse of what I once believed to be safe. I may never regain the innocence I lost, but I could reclaim my life in small ways, through work, through family, through quiet acts of self-care and caution. Each day was a small step toward rebuilding a future, even if the past would always whisper its reminders. And so, as years passed, I carried July 1987 with me, not as a burden I could escape, but as a part of my story, a lesson in vigilance, resilience, and the cost of misplaced trust. I moved forward carefully, but I never let fear completely rule me. I could laugh, I could work, and I could live, but always with the quiet memory of the month that changed everything. After the events of July 1987, life never felt the same again. I carried the memory like a shadow that followed me wherever I went. Even in the smallest moments, when I was eating, walking, or talking to someone, it was there, whispering warnings I could never ignore. The people around me, my family, my friends, even strangers, could not know the weight I carried. I had learned the hard way that trusting the wrong person could destroy everything in a moment. Over time, I realized the trauma had changed me in ways I could not fully describe. My behavior became cautious, almost defensive. I measured every word I said, every smile I gave, every gesture I showed. I could not easily open up to people. Every man I met, even those who seemed kind and sincere, I viewed with suspicion. Relationships became difficult, romantic relationships, friendships, even casual acquaintances. I wanted companionship, but I could not shake the feeling that betrayal might be waiting just around the corner. I could not afford the risk of being hurt again, so I began to keep my distance. My career path also changed. Before July 1987, I had ambitions, plans, and goals I wanted to achieve. But after what happened, I found myself unable to focus in the same way. My energy went into protecting myself, guarding my personal life, and rebuilding the stability I had lost. I took safer paths, avoided risks, and pursued work that felt predictable. I no longer dreamed of taking chances, because I had learned the cost of misplaced trust firsthand. My life direction altered subtly but permanently, like a river forced to flow around a broken dam. Even daily life carried reminders. Small decisions that once felt normal became heavy with fear. Walking down streets at night made my heart beat faster. Meeting new people filled me with tension. Seeing couples or friends laughing reminded me of the innocence I had lost. Trust, once given freely, was now rationed carefully, sparingly, and always with caution. It was a skill I had to learn, a new way of moving through the world that I never asked to master. Despite these challenges, I tried to find ways to reclaim control over my life. After years in the city, surrounded by memories and reminders of betrayal, I made a decision. I would go back to the village. I wanted to set up my life there again, return to the quiet safety of the familiar, and distance myself from the people and places that had caused so much pain. The village represented a fresh start, a place where I could rebuild, and where the echoes of July 1987 were less intrusive. Moving back was not easy. I had to leave behind routines I had built in the city, face the judgment of those who did not understand, and accept the changes in myself that could not be reversed. But it was necessary. In the village, I found a slower pace, a chance to reconnect with family, and a way to ground myself again. I could work, tend to my home, and slowly learn to breathe without fear. The past was still there, like a scar, but the village gave me space to heal and regain a sense of autonomy. However, I was never the same. Relationships remained challenging. I avoided close ties with men, cautious of the possibility that betrayal could appear disguised as kindness. My laughter was more measured, my smiles careful. Even my ambitions became tempered with caution. The lessons of that summer, the warning signs I ignored, the consequences of misplaced trust, were etched permanently into my mind. They influenced every choice, every step, every interaction I had. And yet, despite all the pain, loss, and fear, I survived. I rebuilt what I could, in my own way, on my own terms. The consequences of that time shaped me, yes, but they also strengthened me. I learned the value of vigilance, the importance of intuition, and the cost of blind trust. I discovered a resilience I never knew existed, the kind that comes from facing fear head-on and choosing to continue living, even when every part of you wants to stop. Returning to the village marked a turning point. Life became quieter, simpler, and safer. I could once again enjoy the small things, walking along familiar paths, helping neighbors, and being present with my family. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer ruled me entirely. I had learned to carry it without letting it break me, to acknowledge the shadows while stepping into the light. July 1987 would always follow me, but it no longer dictated my every move. The consequences were clear. Trust must be earned, kindness must be tempered with caution, and survival sometimes means choosing distance over closeness. I had lost much, but I had kept my life, my sanity, and eventually my ability to live again. The village became my sanctuary, a place where I could honor what I had endured, and a place where I could begin to reclaim the peace I thought I had lost forever. Now, looking back from today, I see the woman I was in July 1987 with such clarity, it almost hurts. I remember the hope, the trust, the ease with which I moved through life. I see the small choices I made, the kindness I offered freely, and the doors I opened without thinking twice. And I also see the one moment that changed everything. Even now, decades later, that summer still lives inside me. It hides in quiet corners, in the way I walk past strangers, in the way I hesitate before offering help. It whispers every time I feel my instinct to trust someone. That summer taught me lessons the hard way, lessons I wish I had learned sooner, before the consequences became permanent. I think about how one decision, one small choice, can echo for decades. A choice I thought was harmless became a chain of events that reshaped my life, altered my trust, and left scars that never fully healed. It's strange to see how life carries on around you, how people forget, move forward, or change without ever realizing the battles others are fighting silently inside. But I remember July 1987, the fear, the betrayal, and the loss. Through the pain, though, I also see growth. I have learned to listen to my instincts, to respect the signals that my gut gives me. I have learned that kindness is a gift, but self-preservation is not selfish. I have learned that survival is about choices, sometimes painful, sometimes harsh, but necessary. And while peace may never return completely, acceptance is possible. Acceptance that life is shaped by moments, by decisions, and by lessons that can only be learned through experience. And now, I speak directly to anyone listening, anyone reading, anyone who might one day face a similar choice. Some moments demand one thing: rejection. That summer taught me that not every opportunity is safe. Not every person is trustworthy. Not every helping hand is kind. There is power in refusal. There is protection in saying no, even when it feels uncomfortable. If I could go back, I would walk away. I would trust my instincts before my kindness. I would protect myself before I tried to protect someone else. I would understand that some invitations are traps, even when disguised with smiles and polite words. I would understand that a single moment can echo for the rest of your life. I survived July 1987, yes, but I was forever changed. And as I look back now, I realize that the strongest choice I could have made, the one that could have prevented years of pain, was simply to refuse. Some moments demand one thing: rejection.